It's the Wilk Report. I'm Michael Wilk, coming to you from Cleveland, Ohio. With me is Larry Bernard and also Tom Connors from Midnight's Edge. How are you doing, guys?
Great.
All right,
Doing all right.
All right, so we've got a few topics today. The first one is cartoons, why people are ruining our 80s nostalgia. Yeah, because the latest to be reformatted is She-Ra, Princess of Power, or in this case, Sailor She-Ra. Because the artwork, which you can see on screen, it looks like someone decided to take She-Ra and draw her like Sailor Moon, which looks awful. So
I think it's more they're trying to go for like an Adventure Time Steven Universe ripped from the pages of Tumblr art style.
And I'll just say it. She looks like a boy in drag.
Yeah, she does. I mean, it's...
Remember that episode of the Venture Brothers where Hank and Dean Venture crashed into Baron Underbite's kingdom, and Dean was dressed up as Princess Leia, and they thought he was a girl?
Yeah.
It looks like that.
Yeah, and Screen Rant, and take this with a grain of salt because it is Screen Rant, but it says, She-Ra co-creator strikes back at critics of the new character design, and that would be Michael Straczynski. J. Michael Straczynski, he who did Babylon 5 and also One More Day for Spider-Man.
Well,
so yeah,
well, in fairness, he was told to do One More Day. He did some more controversial things in Spider-Man, like, oh hey, Spider-Man's part of a giant supernatural society of mystic totemic creature things.
Yeah, that was... Yeah, but it says here on the article... that one of the original co-creators... he's spoken out against critics of the new design, and although critics think it was created as an idealized version of a woman, Straczynski denies that this was ever the case, and he goes ahead and says that he and Larry DiTillio created She-Ra in 1985. At the time, He-Man was popular with boys, but Mattel wanted it to have a character to appeal to girls, so they created She-Ra. Alright, so, yeah, I guess, yeah, so Straczynski is saying, and the article includes a screen cap of his Twitter, and I'm going to quote here, "We never considered or wrote for She-Ra as the ideal woman. I don't think that phrase appeared anywhere in the Bible we wrote, and certainly never in our discussions."
Did you look at the pictures you drew? Did you look at those and think, huh? Why are we drawing an ideal woman if that's not our character?
Okay, I want to stop it right there because I said this the other night on the show, and I think it's true. He-Man is almost a metaphor or parallel, whatever word you want to use, for, a big, strong guy. A masculine specimen of humanity, you know what I mean? So when they made She-Ra, she's supposed to be the female version, correct?
Kind of, sort of.
Yeah. Yeah, basically, because
that's the whole thing Rob and I were bringing up on the show is once you take away the idealism of She-Ra, you're taking the fantasy element out of it almost completely. I'm sure she still has powers because that's part of the show is she's learning how to use her powers, but any version of He-Man that I'm familiar with, which I'm familiar with a lot of them, and I'm a huge fan of the original cartoons, and he was even a fan of the reboot they did back in the early 2000s. But when it comes to She-Ra, it's the same kind of thing I see when I see He-Man. It's like he's supposed to be this fantasy idealized version of a superhero, even if it's set in, this strange space, medieval place. But it's still, the point is he's when he's Adam and he turns into He-Man, he's supposed to be this perfect being. And the only reason the old Adam looks just like He-Man is because when it came to the toys and the cartoon, it was so much easier to design that way. And not only that, I guess it was designed that way in a DC comic first. But again, same thing, I'm sure. Easier to just draw a guy looking the same way, It's like, instead of redesigning him, which Adam never got redesigned until, the reboot in 2000 where he was made into a puny teenager. But when he turns into He-Man, he's this ideal specimen. And I was always under the understanding that basically the power of He-Man or the power of She-Ra comes from the elders of Grayskull within, So, like, basically when you summon He-Man, it's a lot like Shazam. is what I'm getting to. Is like you don't just become a muscular version of yourself. You become He-Man or you become She-Ra kind of thing. But then again, they also kind of retcon that a little bit when they brought in Hero. So it's
there's all this Hero.
He's supposed to be a predecessor to He-Man. So
yeah, in the comics they started expanding the lore in strange ways. That like every great crisis of Eternia, there's a champion who's basically He-Man.
I see. So, well, I'd only watched the Filmation TV show back in the 80s. I saw a couple episodes of the new one back in the early 2000s. As far as comics, the only ones I read really were the ones that came with the toys, where it was like basically originally envisioned as a Conan knockoff set on just an alien world or something. But this kind of strikes me as part of a pattern here, and I'm going to bring up the article for Thundercats, because this is part of a pattern of really kind of reimagining our favorite 80s cartoons as these really stupid looking CalArt style or anime looking style, and it just doesn't fit. I mean, it doesn't look good. It doesn't come across, and especially with Thundercats, because they've got Thundercats Roar redesigned in CalArt style, which has been described as let me pull it up here, is that it depends on who you ask, apparently, the definition. It's basically animation buffs have basically used the term to describe cookie cutter style of thin frame animation that kind of looks like really super childish, and so that they've included like Gravity Falls, Star Wars versus the Forces of Evil, Steven Universe, Amazing World of Gumball, and now Thundercats Roar.
Though the Amazing World of Gumball, Star versus the Forces of Evil, they both evolved their art style and became better. Steven Universe is extremely inconsistent because they don't believe in quality control in their animation. They just send inconsistent drawings to the Korean animators and hope for the best.
Well, now I was just going to say, let's call it what it is. It looks like cheap animation done by a 12-year-old.
It is. And
it looks like, something that you used to draw in your notebook at school. It's that bad. The bee face. I don't know, last time I checked, the bee face meant a bitch face, but not resting bitch face, not this cartoon style. That's the first time I ever heard that, besides being referred to as what I just said. So I was like, I'm looking at this crap and I'm like, okay, you're designing this show for somebody who's not even going to be probably even remotely interested in the actual original story idea. So why not just make something original?
Well, it's simple. If you use the IP of She-Ra, you can get people to invest in it thinking that there's going to be a profit margin on that,
right?
Which gives you a budget.
Yeah, and
that's a big part of it.
Yeah, but what really pisses me off though is like this complete lack of respect for the original property, because it's like you're, and also dissing fans who object to it. It's like, those fans are the ones who made it possible for you to do this thing in the first place, because they're the ones who kept interest alive for so many decades, and you're going ahead and calling them man babies, or otherwise just finding ways to disrespect them if they don't like the new design. It's like, yeah.
Also, one of the big points of pushback is they're saying that the people who are critical are wanting to sexualize and use She-Ra as a sex object, as of, no, we just wanted her to look like a girl.
Right, and that's what we're...
Yeah, and it just really ticks me off, because it's like, okay, but that's not what we're saying, actually. We're not saying you should sexualize She-Ra. What we're saying is you should, make her look like the idealized version that she previously looked like, same as with He-Man, because otherwise you're just taking the concept, like Tom was saying during the other video, is, you're taking this concept that originally portrayed an idealized hero concept and basically trying to force it to fit this modernist viewpoint, but it doesn't work. And you're basically, like I said, you're not only disrespecting the fans who made it possible for you to make this new show in the first place, but you're also kind of missing the point of what made the characters so liked in the first place. I mean, you take a look at the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle designs. I mean, first of all, they don't even look like turtles anymore. They look more like just green guys wearing some kind of turtle armor. And they don't look even remotely like anything that you would go ahead and, it just really ticks me off. And
it's funny you bring up the turtles. Yeah, I got a point there when you're done.
Yeah, well, I'm done.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just going to say, I actually started seeing a lot of this. It's funny you bring up the Ninja Turtles, was with the 2014 Ninja Turtle movie. Now, the Turtles have been remade how many times now? 3-4 times? If you count the even live-action versions they did. The Saban people did, or whatever it was that had the rights at the time. But I noticed when the 2014 movie came out, and some of the fans like me were not just against the design, but against the story altogether, because I don't know if you guys have seen the movie, but they excise some very important characters, they excise some very important storylines to streamline it, so April O'Neil is the star of the show. And frankly, I was turned completely off by it, and I was complaining about the movie one day, and of course a newer Turtle fan popped on and said, those wonderful words we keep hearing now, it's not made for you.
Right. Well, then who is it made for? Because
right,
because if it's not made for the people who grew up with this stuff and wanted to see more of it, then you're trying to resurrect cynically resurrect a property just to cash in on it. And it's like, it's not even nostalgia, because you're not resurrecting it for the people who have the nostalgia. You're resurrecting it just to cash in, and then because the people have no connection to the original, you decide you try and tweak it, and then so you end up not only alienating the people for whom you should have been making it, but you're also really making something that is not going to appeal. Because once these people see the originals, and yes, not all of it has really aged well. I mean, the original Masters of the Universe, I mean, you look at it today and it's like, yeah, Filmation, it's not aged well. But
I love it, but you're right, it hasn't. But a better example is that 2000 series, but yeah.
Yeah. A lot of the cartoons today are better as pieces of storytelling and television, but we're backsliding with this cultural vandalism.
Yeah, and also you have to keep in mind the nature of television has changed since then too, because back in the 80s and going into the 90s, you had shows that were basically standalone episodes. There wasn't like this whole series-long or season-long arc that had to be completed, and you had to watch the previous episode in order to understand the next. It was
there's reasons for that.
Because of basically because of reruns in syndication. You didn't know what order the network was going to air your episode, so it had to be self-contained. And if you had reference to something, example, Knight Rider with the prototype for Kit, they introduced him in season 1, brought him back a couple seasons later, and aside from a few blurbs from previously, you wouldn't have known that that was another episode, because
pretty much at that time the only shows that ever connected were really soap operas.
Yeah,
like one of the few that had a running through storyline.
The fancy term, which you see an excellent example of in the TV show Avatar: The Last Airbender, is intertextuality. Each episode was a complete story that was strung together with other complete stories to tell a larger story. So if you watched the one episode, you got a complete story, you were happy. If you watched the arc of episodes, you got another level of story, you were happy. And if you watched the whole season, you got the whole story and you were happy. You didn't miss out at whatever your watching level was.
Yeah,
we'll see it at this time. Oops, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it was James Cameron when Terminator 2 came out and he was doing the behind-the-scenes stuff. He was saying, the sequel should not require you to see the original in order to enjoy it.
Is that why it's a complete remake of the first one?
Basically.
Nobody notices that, but they love the movie. It is. It's like almost a word-for-word remake of the first movie.
Yeah, it is.
There's a few slight tweaks.
Right.
Sarah's like a co-main character, but she's
she's more like the Reese character.
Yeah.
And John is more in the Sarah role, and of course Terminator takes over both the Reese and, you know, various other roles. But yeah. But no, back to what I was going to say before was you also have to point out that a lot of these cartoons that are getting revamped now, especially She-Ra and He-Man, coming from a time when, see, people, I don't know if you guys are old enough, as old as I am, or probably close to it, I think you are, but I'm sure you remember when we were younger, the only times there was what you would call network ran cartoons was Saturday mornings. Everything else was in syndication until Fox Kids came along. Outside, because so like He-Man, She-Ra, Transformers, all these shows were sold as syndicated packages. And at that time, regulations for cartoons had been, I guess, released, for lack of a better word. Because before that, you could not make a TV show that was a tie-in to a toy. You couldn't make a toy for a TV show to tie into it, and all these other things. The only exceptions to those rules were like the superheroes. Mm-hmm. And then when the regulations were changed, that's why we got all these TV shows, because, oh, great, now we can basically make 30-minute commercials for our toys. And that's exactly what they were.
And the toy company saw this was genius because of how George Lucas made a ton of money off of Star Wars toys.
Right. Like 90% of the male-driven toys of the early 1980s were almost completely inspired by Star Wars, especially He-Man. And of course in vicariously then She-Ra, but it's just, the point is, like I was getting to, is for a lot of these shows to rise above the garbage and to be remembered this long later is a little bit more than nostalgia. And of course, like I'll sit there and be the first one to say, no, Ninja Turtles and Masters of the Universe and stuff like that from the 80s doesn't necessarily stand up now. And I'm not saying they can't be revamped, but to get us all back around to what we keep saying is, if you're going to, you know, say we don't need the old fans, then who are you going to get to watch this that isn't, you know, obviously, you're going to have to create a new fan. And I'm not saying you can't do that. But a perfect example of how that is not a good way to run business is Star Wars.
Yeah, and you know, speaking of Star Wars, because I was going to do a thing, which, you know, thankfully this kind of dovetails into it, is you know, this whole concept of subverting expectations. And there was a Twitter that kind of explained how you subverted expectations, because if you think about it, the original Star Wars, you know, Luke is not some hero. He's just some idealistic farmer who, you know, eventually embarks on a journey to avenge the death of his father, but then Lucas goes ahead and subverts expectations by transforming it from a revenge story to a hero's journey, and finally to a redemption story where the son actually decides, you know what, I'm not interested in becoming this great Jedi, I just want to save my father. And it just, that's how you subvert expectations. You know, it's also like with Hitchcock, you don't go ahead and subvert it in the way that Ruin Johnson does, where it's like, oh, everything's crap, your fan theories are crap. No, this is, and it kind of goes into this kind of debate I've been having with a few people on what they call deconstruction. I actually prefer to call it demolition rather than deconstruction, because if you actually take a look at the definition of demolition versus deconstruction, I've got an article up here on screen, metrovancouver.org. It kind of describes the difference. It says deconstruction is a more labor-intensive process than demolition after the removal of hazardous materials and salvage and yada yada. But you know, the basic difference, as I see it, is that deconstruction involves carefully taking something apart, examining the components, understanding how and why they work, and then when you put it back together again, you do it in a way that makes people think differently about what it was before. For example, you have Tom and Jerry, you know, which is a slapstick cartoon for kids, and you know, there's a comic strip out there where it shows you know, Jerry hitting Tom over the head with a heavy mallet, Jerry getting called before the judge, sentenced to prison, and then the last panel shows Tom in a wheelchair suffering from PTSD and permanent brain damage. And you know, that's how you deconstruct it, because you're taking real world consequences and applying them to a slapstick cartoon, where you didn't actually kind of think about that before because you were a kid, and now you're an adult and you're thinking about this. Okay, what would happen if you applied real world consequences? But that actually kind of seems to me to be more demolition than deconstruction, because you're not actually examining the components. You're basically just applying your views onto something that had gone on before.
Right, and a lot of people don't generally see this or have an issue with this, which, okay, that's cool. But I can imagine a lot of these same people would have an issue if you turned around and said, well, let's take, the story of Jesus or the story of Moses or Buddha or whatever, and we're going to change this aspect, and we're going to change that aspect. Oh, we're going to give them machine guns for arms, and start to look at the look on people's faces and then be like, okay.
Or how about the classic Superman comic book story, Superman versus the Elite, which was what was done most recently in a cartoon, where you have a bunch of vigilante superheroes who, attack terrorists and are violent vigilantes, and Superman to pretended to be one of them to explain to the world why being that way is completely and utterly insane. That was a deconstruction of Superman, where Superman not only put himself back together, he put the whole superhero genre back together.
Yeah, right. Well, that's true. But the point I was getting to, though, was also, like I said, most people don't see a problem with that. But like, if you fuck with something that people consider history, or that they have a major investment in, they're going to get upset. And I was just, trying to point out the same way, to certain people who may not understand the nerd culture could possibly understand it. Same thing like, okay, let's say if your favorite sports team decides, to trade off its star player for somebody who's not even remotely as good. But they're like, well, we need to, freshen up the team. It's the same kind of concept. It's like they're trying to do something fresh with something that didn't need to be changed. And I brought up a perfect point was, look at Superman 1978. By that point already, Superman was close to, I think that was that was like his 40th anniversary. So a character that was already 40 years old, and they didn't really change the character at all. They changed the world around him, but they didn't really change the character. Why? Because there was nothing wrong with that character to begin with, and what makes a character inherently is their traits, who they are. And of course, you can sometimes deconstruct a character, like, Mike was saying, but do you have to, and should you, as, to steal a line from Jeff Goldblum, it's just because you can, doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, and it seems like, by fundamentally altering the character, you're not engaging in deconstruction, you're basically just demolishing the old to make room for the new, which is,
right.
Which might work in real life for buildings, but not for like people or iconic characters in our media. Because you try and take Sherlock Holmes, for example. What is the thing that makes him work? That he solves mysteries, and then when Stephen Moffat goes ahead and it goes ahead and reboots him, he turns him into a complete Gary Stu, who is perfect in his imperfection and never loses, not even to Irene Adler, who, in the original Holmes story where she appears, she defeats him and forces him to learn and grow as a person. So, this whole idea, and getting back to comics, and Zack Snyder, when he goes to do Man of Steel, he turns Superman from this hero Boy Scout with brightly colored uniform to this angsty,
the ultimate
kind of dark version with this kind of really stupid looking scale armor rubber suit. And I didn't care for the revamp in Superman Returns, because again, I don't like rubber suits, but at least it stayed closer to the original look.
Right, suit aside, yeah, that one, at least, again, it took the same character, put him in the modern times now. Did the same exact thing Richard Donner did, maybe a little too much like Richard Donner did, but regardless, I don't remember anybody bitching about Superman himself. I don't remember anybody bitching about Brandon Routh. Yeah, there were complaints about the story. Yeah. There was complaints about choices that Singer had made with the character. That I can understand, but I had no issues with Brandon Routh. I had no issues with, updating. I had no issues with how they did it. It was the execution.
Right.
It was, there were certain aspects of the story that were just like, okay.
Superman as a deadbeat dad was just no.
Right. Well, keep in mind, though, he didn't even know he had a kid until after he returned. And, at first they implied that the kid was the that he was Lois's boyfriend's kid, and then it's only revealed later on that he's actually Superman's child.
And I actually kind of liked that part of the story. I didn't mind that part, but that felt like there was just so much wasted time in that movie, setting up another film we never got.
Right. Right, and
that's a big problem.
I think there was going to be another film, except that the movie.
I think he had a planned trilogy.
Right. It did so poorly that
and that's actually a misconception too, because the movie didn't really do that bad. The reason it didn't make any money is because they tacked on the Superman Lives budget onto this movie,
which was insane.
Yeah. So basically, the movie had to make enough money for 2 movies, and I don't think it did that horrible. I don't know if it made. I think it made at least close to $300 million domestically.
It probably broke even on its own budget.
Exactly. Well, I think as far as its own budget, I think it did fine. But add in the Superman Lives budget, I think it broke even. I think is actually what it is. But because I don't think it performed that badly, I think it did on par with Batman Begins.
Yeah.
But because it cost so fucking much because of that excess budget, plus they also had Superman Flyby, whatever they spent on that in there too, which was minuscule in comparison. But all these Superman projects that never were made all got tacked onto this one for Warner Brothers tax reasons.
So is this section of our show going to be all about how Warner Brothers keeps making horrible decisions, especially with the DC IP?
Well, let's not go there, because but no, it just goes to it just kind of goes to my mind in like I said, deconstruction versus demolition, because if you think about it, there's really not a whole lot to say about Superman Returns, because again, you're not fundamentally altering the character in there, whereas compared that to Zack Snyder's piece, right? And because like I said, I don't care for the way that they made Brandon Routh's Superman costume. It's too dark. I think if they were gonna make it out of rubber, okay, I don't like it, but I can understand you got to update it for the post-Batman era. But it still was too dark, and
it's because of the spandex. Yeah, they did not want men in spandex. Right. That was the basic bottom line.
Even though we've seen pictures of Henry Cavill in the Christopher Reeve's costume, and it still looks good. The look still holds up.
Even though it's not spandex, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie Hollywoodland. I thought Ben Affleck looked amazing in the old George Reeves costume.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to me, if you're gonna do Superman, keep him true to form, because that, to me, is it's a cardinal sin. It's like some things you don't want to mess with, and even though we had Superman more or less true to form in Superman Returns, but we don't get that for Man of Steel or Batman vs. Superman or Justice League, where he's basically this kind of angsty psychopath, and it's like, guys, you're missing a whole point of why Superman works in the first place.
Right, and that's what I was getting to with the whole analogy with Jesus with machine guns, even though it's a physical difference. Okay, if you made Jesus a Martian with machine gun arms, it's kind of the same thing here. You might as well just make a new character. There's it's like Captain Ahab, you could have him chasing a bear, but then would it still be Moby Dick? It's like certain things you start changing them, and it's like, then why even do that story? Why don't you just do your own thing inspired by that? Yeah. You know what I mean? And
look at how well John Wick's done. John Wick, I think, is the last fairly original piece of IP that's come to the movie theaters that I can remember.
And really, all that is just an 80s action movie.
Yeah.
All John Wick is Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis, put your action star here in the 80s. And every time they would come in, it's like, you ever notice, it's like every time, they mention their name. It's all the same 80s tropes we've seen before. Quentin Tarantino does the same damn thing.
Yeah, and Tarantino does actual deconstruction, because he's taking all those tropes, and actually, I don't know if I would call it deconstruction, more like an homage to what...
Yeah, he's not taking something you love and fucking with it. He's taking elements of this and that and the other and creating something completely new out of it. And I'd have no problem with that. If they want to do a She-Ra-like character, go for it. But why destroy what was there originally, or try to, hijack a fan base and then just basically tell those fans to fuck off? Yeah. Makes no sense to me.
Yeah, and speaking of fan bases, the fan base for James Gunn is getting active, because we've got fans petitioning for Disney to rehire James Gunn for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, because they are pissed that he got fired over tweets that he made years ago. We've got Dave Bautista and Patton Oswalt saying, they're not happy.
And
with
what's-her-face Ellis, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, according to Polygon.com, actor Dave Bautista defended Gunn after he was fired from Disney.
So who do you think that is going to replace Drax?
Who knows? But I'm going to quote Bautista's remarks. Bautista was saying, "I will have more to say, but for right now, all I will say is this. James Gunn is one of the most loving, caring, good-natured people I have ever met. He's gentle and kind and cares deeply for people and animals. He's made mistakes. We all have. I'm not okay with what's happening to him." And then, of course, you've got Patton Oswalt, who are voicing their own frustrations. Oswalt was saying, "This is one of the less disgusting tweets from Mike Cernovich, the dude who, after running a Gamergate-style smear campaign, just got James Gunn fired from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And then he pointed to an old Cernovich tweet, says, "Okay, have a good weekend." And Hound was tweeting, Disney, your stories are so often about redemption. To fire James Gunn for jokes made as a younger man, jokes for which he's already apologized, goes against the moral code you taught us all when we were kids. No sense in cutting loose a good man. I urge you to rehire him. I guess it's a good thing
for RDJ he's almost out the door, huh?
Yeah. And
or how about the fact that the head of Pixar is on extended leave of absence after allegations of, sexual harassment and etc.
Yeah.
But okay, before anybody confuses the situation and accuses, okay, the media has spun this thing into a complete frenzy. What media is talking about it. And they've already pretty much pinned him as a pedophile. Like, there are people going around saying these exact words. He deleted 10,000 pedophilia jokes, and he was sharing child pornography with a known with somebody who was busted with child porn.
Yeah, and
okay, let me set the record straight here. Of those 10,000 tweets, about a dozen or maybe just under 20, I think, were these disgusting pedophilia type jokes, and they were mixing in other jokes with those on a lot of the ones that they were posting. Okay, not just the pedophilia ones, but other types of jokes. So at best, maybe there was a dozen. Not a good thing. But I'm just saying, let's put some context around this too. The video in question that everybody claims is child pornography that he shared from from a guy who just recently, mind you, was charged and convicted of having child pornography. At this time, it's not like Gunn would have known, okay? So I highly doubt he would have been joking like this with somebody who would have been later if he was going to know this guy was going to get busted, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Point is, though, the video in question is not pubescent girls touching themselves, which everybody is saying that's what it is. It's a choir of girls, either in their late teens or early college years, fully clothed, singing the song "I Touch Myself" by the Divinals. So all that proved was that James Gunn has a sick sense of humor. But they won't tell you that part, because that would totally negate the narrative that James Gunn is a pedophile and has admitted it.
There's the video Red Letter Media posted of them back in 2014 after the first Guardians of the Galaxy came out, saying, really, who in Disney thought that the guy who had a rape scene in one of his movies where a woman raped a man was the guy to do your next superhero franchise film?
And the movie in question you're talking about is called Super, which is actually a good movie. It takes an extremely dark twist. As same thing with any of his other movies if you've watched him. This guy used to work for Troma.
Yeah.
And I said this back then. I don't know why they thought that this guy was a good choice, but okay. And then there's other people, why didn't he scrub his tweets then? Well, he already apologized for him. He owned them. Why?
Yeah.
And then the thing with the whole thing now is
and Ted Cruz is calling for him to be prosecuted.
Right. On what grounds?
Right, because he's doing the whole child rape bullshit thing, and
that's the thing.
Responded to his Twitter reply. Shut the fuck up, Ted Cruz. Everything
there's
that spews
this
out of your
whole
mouth
entire group of people who are out there calling him a pedophile, basically saying he's raping children, and it's like this guy has had not one accusation against him. He's never been charged with anything. He's probably been investigated before. I guarantee this other guy that just got busted. At that point, anybody he's ever interacted with in any way has probably been investigated somewhat.
Yeah.
And chances are he is being investigated now. If something comes of it, great. Then it had to happen, and it's too damn late, and it took too damn long. And nobody did their due diligence, especially Disney. And the point I keep coming to is, okay, fine. I don't agree with the jokes, but they are just jokes. And either everything's okay or nothing's okay. Same thing with South Park. That's where I stole that from. And it's true, because South Park has done how many jokes and storylines along the same lines. And again, it's all about context. And the people that are going out there just, basically in the court of public opinion, labeling this guy a child molester or child rapist or whatever with zero proof or accusations or whatsoever. It's not like Bill Cosby. It's not like Victor Salva. It's not like Weinstein. It's not like Bryan Singer, where he's had years and years of allegations following him.
Yeah,
I did a pretty thorough search. I could not find one accusation. Not one.
And can anybody who's using Twitter out there who's listening to this, can we all stop trying to destroy people on Twitter who we don't agree with? Can it be like, okay, you have an opinion I don't agree with, I'm going to express the opposite opinion, and I'm not going to try to destroy your livelihood, or try to...
put this even more, and to put this even more in perspective, this all came about because of some shit with Ben Shapiro, and also, of course, he's, very anti-Trump, and then the whole Roseanne thing that just happened. I don't think James Gunn was directly targeted. I think anybody who's a Disney employee right now is being targeted, and he just happened to be one that they found something on.
You got Disney you got DC fanboys who want to take down Marvel. You got angry Star Wars fanboys, and
right.
Well, I'll stick up for angry Star Wars fanboys a lot. If you're coming to snipe at people because you're not happy with the fact that they cut the extended universe, you have a problem.
Well, and I even said that too. I don't agree with James Gunn coming out after the Star Wars fans. He should have just kept his mouth shut on that. But that's neither here nor there. Like I said, this basically boils down a lot to the whole Roseanne thing and how Disney fired her within 24 hours of her tweet. But they're trying to draw all kinds of parallels when there really isn't any. James' tweets are jokes aimed at nobody specific. There's no specific target. There's no victims that we know of, okay?
Yeah, and even
Roseanne's tweet was directed at somebody, and even though she claims it was not racist, it obviously was, and then she turned around and blamed Ambien for it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you look at her apology video, she was stoned out of her mind in that apology video, too. I think she's got a serious drug problem going on right now.
Yeah, mental
James
problems,
Gunn has taken
problems,
responsibility for this stuff. He's claimed, obviously, that this isn't his lifestyle, so I have to say that, but I don't think it is. I'd be very surprised if something comes up and he actually has some kind of strange, wicked past that we don't know about. If that's true, then Disney made the right decision. But at this point, to kind of just basically flatten out my point altogether and shut up about it, I'm sick of talking about it.
Yeah,
is that
I will say
Disney didn't do their due diligence to begin with. They did owe it to him now. To at least go back and look through this and make sure that the context was correct. But regardless, I can see Disney's point. I'm not real pissed at Disney. If you're going to be tweeting stuff like this, obviously you're not within the Disney family, but that keeps bringing us back around to the point. Why buy the guy, or why hire the guy who did Romeo and Juliet if you're worried about this kind of a thing?
Yeah.
Right, because even Ben Shapiro is actually saying that this is setting a bad precedent. And Yahoo News reports that he's voicing his opposition. And the quote from Shapiro says, "I think James Gunn is an a-hole, as my exchange with him earlier this week made clear. I also think that firing him for vile joke tweets is a bad precedent and a mistake. There is no limiting principle to the outrage mob." And this has Ben Shapiro saying this, the very guy who basically got him fired in the first place.
Well, because he knows if you start digging through his shit, it's going to be the same thing. And that's just it. Then the same thing they found out about this Cernovich guy. It's the same old thing, and the right should have been smart about this. You know, they should have looked at we couldn't surprise everybody and stand up for James Gunn, and be like, no, it's the same thing as Roseanne. He shouldn't be fired for shit he said all these years ago. But the context isn't there. The type of jokes don't help, and you can't defend a guy like that. What are you going to do? You know, because the moment you start doing it, and we've already got it, you're defending a pedophile. But there is no proof that this guy is a pedophile. You know, it's like people are treating us like we're defending Weinstein or something like that. And it's not even the fact that we're defending him per se. We don't care if he lost his job. We knew that was going to happen.
This is the sort of thing that makes the internet a terrible place for everybody.
Right. The problem that I think a lot of people are scared of now is, where does this put the First Amendment? Because you already have, basically, in the court of public opinion and in the media, saying that this guy's a pedophile. Yet there's been no accusations made by anybody.
Yeah, and I think a large part of it is driven by right-wing media. Let's face it, because I mean, this same stuff went on during the Bush-Cheney regime.
Oh yeah, because their very first Daily Caller, it's in the video. I don't remember the exact headline, but it basically says in the headline that he admits to being a pedophile and sharing child pornography. It didn't take me 10 minutes to find this video. So anybody who works for a newspaper or news organization or anything like that needs to start doing their due diligence. That is not how you put together a story. That is
you can't do that, because then you appear biased.
Well, a recurring theme we're running into here is media companies not doing their jobs because it's hard.
Yeah.
Whether it's TV shows or movies or the news.
I fantasies like Glenn Beck or Rachel Maddow.
Night's Edge full time, and I barely make any money. And these people get paid probably 3 times or more than I do. And like I said, it took me 10 minutes to find some of the context to some of these jokes. And as I said, it doesn't necessarily mean they're funny, but they're obviously jokes.
Right, and these people also have something we don't. They have paid researchers who can look this stuff up for them, and they don't know how to use Google. I mean, come on, no, it's that they don't
sure
even
could use the Wayback Machine to find the tweets, though.
Yeah.
Well, I suspect that Cernovich probably used the hacker known as 4chan to get that information.
Yeah. Well, if you're getting information,
and the funny thing is, I think 4chan was also
first red flag.
Well, maybe it was Reddit, so I can't say that. But yeah, I was gonna say it didn't take me long to find the other stuff out, because it was one of those groups that came right, and that's where I got to give them credit. They did a lot of the footwork for me. But it's out there if you look. It's not that hard. And that's where I hate these news organizations who just run this sensationalized bullshit without doing the due diligence and checking into it first.
And what's worse is this makes Trump's point about the media for him. Perfectly.
It does. And then they hide behind the freedom of the press bullshit. And it does. And it's sad, because it's not everybody. It's only a few that are doing it as far as like the sensationalized tabloid crap. And then that's the other thing they could do, is just hide behind that too. So it's like, like Fox News, basically. I mean, and I'm not trying to hit on the right so hard here, but it's true. You have the same kind of shit on the left as well. Don't get me wrong. It's not a one-person game. And this Cernovich guy basically played right into the left. He basically passed that puck over to him, and they played it perfectly the way he wanted him to.
And he works for an outfit called One American News that's actually to the right of Fox News.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he worked.
Well, he
for
knew
One
as
American
soon as
News.
he found this stuff and put it out there, the SJWs and the liberals and the lefts were going to eat him alive. And it was a perfect opportunity for the Star Wars fans, and perfect timing for that, because he had just, said something about the Star Wars fans. What was it, last week or the week before? Yep. So yeah, it was all perfectly timed. And like I said, I don't think James Gunn was directly targeted. I don't think he was the only one targeted. I wouldn't be surprised if this happens to more Disney people. They might back off a little bit because it didn't turn out necessarily the way they wanted it to. They got the result they wanted, but I don't think they really planned on. And I'm going to say this just because of what I've seen as far as the opinions, about 2-to-1 opinion of they shouldn't have fired him, or at least, the feelings that it seems like we all kind of share is that, it's not about, the whole thing of what he said. It's the fact that he has the right to be able to joke about it and not be persecuted for it without any proof of actually being a pedophile. Because to me, most of the jokes come off sarcastic, as sick as they are.
Yeah, and what pisses me off is that this guy Cernovich, this is the same bullshit artist who pushed Pizzagate as an actual conspiracy fantasy,
which is sad because I know people who still believe that, and and
right,
there's
and
smart
no
people.
Evidence for it. It's like
and there's smart
is
people.
as
It's
fake
like,
as Russiagate is, and it's like, you know, because you got people on the left and the so-called left and the far right.
Well, it depends on which version of Russiagate you're talking about, but I don't want to get into that either. But
yeah. Okay, can we get into something a lot easier to talk about like the horrible Teen Titans Go trailer? Or the Teen Titans.
The Teen Titans.
I have no investment in it, but that goes right along with what we started the conversation with too. Yeah,
because we've got Teen Titans coming up, and
with Robin murdering people and saying "F Batman" because I'm an edgy boy, and Starfire looking like a prostitute because they've designed a terrible costume for an actress as opposed to just getting her a padded bra.
I've seen and I've said this a million times. I've seen cosplay 10 times better than that. And not only that, you have to stop and think somebody was paid to not only design that, but to put it together, and they're a costume designer and they were paid. What the fuck?
They cheaped out the outfit for Starfire, for Raven, for Beast Boy. They've cheaped out the CGI for all three of their powers, and this was the live-action trailer to try to sell you on this streaming service. Where's this money you're cutting going? Is it to hide the money you lost on Batman v Superman and Justice League? Is that why this show was cut to the bone for the budget?
Yeah, because I mean,
I'd imagine something to that effect. Not only that, it's for their streaming service, so it's all in-house. All money's coming back to them. It's
yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, Starfire, they make her look like a hooker, and it's like, well, who thought this was a good idea? Like, seriously.
Especially to a black actress. That's even worse.
Yeah, I mean, you know, for all we're supposed to be woke, I mean, you're basically perpetuating a stereotype, and it's a rather horribly racist one.
But if you say anything, you're the racist. That's the thing. It's like I'm sure you guys are aware of Dave Chappelle. Mm-hmm. You ever seen the stand-up comedy show Killing Them Softly?
Yep.
Where he goes, you know, we're not supposed to assume things. You know, she may look like a whore, but you're not supposed to call her that. You know what I mean? She may dress like one, whatever. We're not supposed to assume, though, right? Okay. But if you see somebody in a cop's uniform and you run up to him and say, police officer, I need help, blah, blah, blah. Just because I'm wearing this, do you think I'm a police officer? Well, you are wearing a police officer's uniform. If you're wearing a whore's uniform, then you must be a whore. It's a joke, but that's the whole point here is like, okay, you're setting up a precedent to where it's almost like the whole Ghostbusters thing and the STD thing and everything like that, to where if we have an out where if people bitch about this, then we can claim they're just being racist or they're just being sexist or they're just being this or they're just being that. And that is bullshit.
And this is a recurring excuse for lazy product.
Right. Or doing something stupid that somebody should have been, wait a minute, this is probably not a good fucking idea.
Yeah, and there's a meme out there.
Excuse my French, but it's getting me. It gets me irritated. Sorry.
Yeah, there's a meme out there that I'm showing on screen right now. It's expectation versus reality, and the caption reads, "How the fuck could you get it this wrong?" And it's like, and you can't help but agree because the image on the left shows someone in a proper Starfire costume, looks good, and then on the right it shows the actress playing Starfire, and she looks, it's horrible.
Also, Teen Titans Go, which has been hated by fans of the Teen Titans property, is having its send-off movie. And that's also promoting right now while you have fuck Batman Robin on the screen. Who in marketing thought that was a good idea?
Yeah, I don't get this. You know...
Right, and you know, it's
their excuse is it's not supposed to be for you. Well, then if it's supposed to be for these newer fans that you created with this kids show that started a few years ago, and you're supposedly graduating them into this or what? Because I don't know about that.
Yeah, and it goes back to you know, what they've done to Starfire in the comics, where they've made her into this hypersexual nymphomaniac who sleeps around, and it's like I don't know what the hell is going on with their brains, and in doing all this, because
there's a fine line between hypersexualized and being a free love character, and she was always a free love character. So the problem is that she's
not a whore, she's a strong feminist.
Right, but the problem is for the modern author that they don't have that concept of a free love person,
independent woman,
not a slut, basically, in their minds, even though they don't use the word slut, because that's a wrong word.
Yeah, and well,
I'm being sarcastic, sorry.
Yeah, I just think, at this point, guys, stop trying to reinvent things, because one, you're messing with the thing that made it so great in the first place, and people are reacting badly to it because it goes back to, changing the fundamentals of what made it work in the first place. And
the formula, and we keep going back to New Coke. I'm sure you guys remember what happened with New Coke.
Unfortunately,
it's the same thing. You change the formula, people are going to get pissed. Yeah. They bitch about the same old thing, but they find new ways to enjoy Coke. Same thing with anything you can come up with, It's like you can find all kinds of new adventures. And the reason the superheroes piss me off the most, because they have how many years upon decades of stuff to sift through, yet they constantly insist on doing something new. Well, and then they don't stop to think about, and this goes with like Star Trek Discovery. Don't you think maybe that somebody's done it before you already? And they have.
Also, by that mentality, William Shakespeare plays in classic operas wouldn't draw large audiences if we always had to do something new, but people keep going to those. Maybe if you do something well, you might actually have people go to see it.
But
right, well, that's
that
like any legend. Yeah.
But that would ruin the whole SJW agenda.
Well, Shakespeare's kind of a bad example because they've done a few different things with Shakespeare. He's been updated in different ways, but what they do keep generally is the core elements of the story.
Right.
As far as like the lessons, the archetypes, because they're there for a reason. And to me, like a story is almost like a song. A great band can take any song and do it in their own way. And sometimes even there's, a handful of, whatever you would call them, cover songs or remakes of older songs that are, I don't know if they're better, but they're at least unique enough and different enough and in their own vein that you could say that does stand on its own. And you can do such a thing. It's the same thing with movies. You keep all the same chords, you keep all the same melodies, but you can twist things and do it with a different instrument or do it with a different, a tone, and it totally changes it, but it's still the same. The same thing can be done with any story. And that's why I keep jumping back to these, religious stories and stuff, because to me they're that important to a lot of people today as those stories are to people of faith. It's the same kind of thing. You start fucking with Star Wars, you're fucking with people's faith in some ways. And sure, there is a lot of Luke Skywalker worship, hero worship. Don't get me wrong. But you said it before earlier. I think it was Larry who said it, or was it Mike? I'm sorry. One of you did basically where it was Ruin just wanted to say, fuck the fans, fuck your fan theories. I know exactly how to make them all mean nothing. And he did all that. With Snoke, with Rey, with Luke, Leia, all the whole thing down the line. He did everything he could to make sure whatever theory you had as a person was going to be wrong. You could never have imagined Snoke was a nobody. You could never have imagined Rey was a nobody. You could have never imagined he was going to turn Luke into the fucking old guy next door who bitches at you to get off your lawn.
Possibly, you know what I mean? Because it was never conceived that way in the first place, and even Abrams, as stupid as he is, as shallow as he is, understood that.
But yes. Can we talk about a positive bit of hallelujah in the Church of Star Wars? The new Clone Wars season that's coming out, even though it's not really new. But Disney is trying to make us think it's new to create some positive Star Wars
we've been talking about that, and I did confirm that these episodes were ones that were created during the initial run. Most of the audio is already done. I think some of them have been started, or at least in the storyboard phase. So none of this is going to be really new. It's all just they're finishing what they had started, basically. But yeah, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, and so that. Everybody out there in the hate Kathleen Kennedy sphere on Twitter and on YouTube was happy that this was coming out. Perhaps somebody in Disney might listen and say, maybe we should try to give Dave Filoni a Star Wars movie, and let's see what he does with it.
I don't know if they'll do that, but we brought it up on one of our shows. This is the beginning of the Star Wars apology tour.
Yeah, and they're bringing back Ahsoka Tano.
Thanks for the invite.
Hi! Front row, nobody puts baby in a corner.
They saved with time travel in the Rebel series.
Download the Atom app and get $5 off your first ticket.
So this is...
I haven't seen it, but no, I know what you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just really... they're doing heavy on the fan service right now, but yeah, that's basically all I've got for discussion.
Also, Shazam had a trailer that came out that was pretty good. They went a little bit in. They went a little bit in some of the scenes with kind of Marvel jokes, and just like with Star Wars tries to do Marvel jokes, they don't really work. But I think the trailer showed them 70 to 90% on target for what they're supposed to do for the character.
But my only concern is if the joke's going to be able to carry 2 hours. That's my concern.
Well, it's a good kid who gets powers better than Superman.
Right. It's big with superpowers. I get it. And I got the concept. They did pretty much what I expected them to do, but they actually kind of pulled it off at least. I'll give them credit. That the Shazam trailer, I laughed a good 3-4 times at least. I'll give them that. I'll go see it and I'll give it a chance. Aquaman though,
and Aquaman, yeah, that's trash. That's trash. But yeah, like the whole part where the kid with the crutch went to him and said, "There's some really serious Games of Thrones shit here," and it's like, nah, just fucking with you. I think they're making fun of the Zack Snyder darkness from the DC Extended Universe.
But of course, they got away with that joke, and James Gunn couldn't. But anyway, no. My problem with this is like, okay, I try to bring up to people, not to go back to the James Gunn thing, but it's like if you've ever laughed at the movie Airplane, if you've ever laughed at South Park, if you've ever laughed at Family Guy, or 100 other shows like this, or movies that have done jokes just like this, and you think that this is no more than a joke, then okay. I mean, I'm not saying the guy might not have a weird obsession and he needs to get some help, but he was doing this when he was trying to be an edgelord. He was trying to be edgy. So of course he's
on the edge of the film industry. So of course he went to parties with guys who were in the porn industry who were sketchy, and has sketchy. I went to this party at this porn shoot stories, which is where the whole monkey story came from.
And these guys that were that maybe were. You know, it's not necessarily... I have a hard time believing that James Gunn would associate with the guy if he knew he was a pedophile.
No, but I mean, like, in that space in the porn world, there are a lot of sketchy people. So it's not a he knew thing, it's a somebody should have took him aside and said, listen, be careful, because you don't want to be associated with one of these people if something goes horribly wrong.
And and I set it up, he made his bed, he's got to sleep in it now, unfortunately, and when it comes to a company like Disney, I'm understanding of why they fired him.
Oh yeah, I mean...
If it was Fox or somebody else like that, I'd be like, okay. But if Roman Polanski wanted to make a movie, you'd be cool with it, I bet. Or something to that effect. Okay. So that's the thing, and don't get me wrong, I'll be the first one to admit that Hollywood is full of perverts, but everywhere is full of perverts. That's what I don't think a lot of, because everybody's always, it's just Hollywood, Hollywood, Hollywood. There's just as many perverts in Congress. There's just as many perverts right next door to you, possibly. Go on to the sex registry.
Well,
see how many people in your area. Trust me, it's a lot more than you think.
A little bit more complicated, those type of people.
Right. But I'm just saying,
go to where the kids are.
Well, that too. Now, like, what's his face? Is it Schneider or something like that from Nickelodeon?
Yeah.
Dan Schneider.
Yeah, who's got the foot fetish thing.
Exactly.
Well.
There's years of this shit following this guy. Years of this shit. Supposedly, he's the reason Amanda Bynes, or whatever her name is all fucked up.
Yeah.
Okay? This is not something new. I've been hearing about this shit for a while.
Like, if we get a legitimate, the police arrest him and baskets full of child porn come out of his house, nobody's going to be surprised who's been following his story.
Yeah, and if you believe Corey Feldman... I mean, there's, it really goes back a long while.
Yeah.
Well, and that's another thing I always brought up with the Me Too movement, and I can't usually talk about this stuff too much on Midnight Size, not because I can't so much as it's just not in our wheelhouse of what we cover. So it really is when it comes to shit like this. It's like I've said this before. It's like, okay, this is great that the women are starting to get their voices out there, but what about the fucking kids? Nobody's ever said anything about the kids. Corey Feldman's the only one coming out saying anything, and everybody's treating him like he's insane.
Yeah, but they're not giving the same treatment to Eliza Dushku, because back in January she came out and said that the stuntman on True Lies molested her, and she was only 12 at the time.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. There's all kinds of these stories out there, and there are people who are, trying to get the word out there, and there's other people out there who are trying to just go after rabbit holes, and just because they don't like somebody, they're trying to dig something up on them. But still, the point is yes, this shit is a problem, and it needs to be brought to light. But now James Gunn, I don't think he's part of the problem. That's what I really don't. I'm not. Awesome. If it comes out that there is something on him, I won't be surprised because of these jokes. But I really don't think anybody who has that type of lifestyle is going to be joking about NAMBLA and making the type of jokes that he's making online. I really don't.
But let's just go to the business side of that equation. The actors aren't going to be happy in this situation with a new director.
Well, this is
it's going to make whatever that third movie is, if he's not involved creatively in the process, not as good.
They're going to use his script regardless.
They're going to use his script, but
I guarantee you that.
Dave Bautista's not going to be happy, and I'm sure he's not the only actor.
Bautista's going to come out, and I think the only reason he hasn't said anything yet is because he's probably trying to get a few more people on his side.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling you're going to hear a statement from a few of the actors saying, if James Gunn is not involved in this film, neither are we. And I already said the movie's probably going to get pushed back. There's a few people who don't agree with me on that. I think it's going to get pushed back. There's no way it's not at this point, unless they've already got somebody in line and they're ready to they were that far enough ahead in the pre-production that they're able to just insert somebody. Then I don't know. And if they don't find
Taika Waititi, who's not really
he's busy. That's the thing. I guess he's working right now. I can't remember what it is he's making, but I guess he's working on something right now, and he's
wrapping up his Hitler. Movie.
Something or other. Yeah, so he's going to be going into post production on that. So that's another thing. And then people have brought up the Russo brothers or Lord and Miller, but I highly doubt Disney and Miller got a good relationship. I would go with Jon Favreau. Get somebody like Jon Favreau, or. Everybody keeps saying Ron Howard, and I would be like, okay, but you need some, and he's got the sensibilities, I guess, but I just don't know if he's got the vision. He's good with actors, he's good with certain stories and stuff, and the only reason I think Han Solo looked the way it did is because most of that shit was already set in place before he got there, and I don't blame him anything for Solo, but I'm not so sure his visuals style would mix with what Gunn did. But you need somebody who has a little bit more of a wilder style, or could at least emulate that, and I think somebody like Favreau or something like that could come in and do that job.
Also, another thing from San Diego Comic-Con, I know we're kind of running a little over, they're going to reboot Buffy, and all the feminist voices on Twitter are saying that's a terrible idea and you shouldn't do it. And their reasoning is that the story arc of Buffy was about going from a white privileged position of power to becoming a intersectional, diverse universe of power. So this really trying to retell that story now kind of invalidates the whole growth and development of that
it doesn't
story.
Feel good, does it?
No, it doesn't feel good to them.
Yeah, because it's...
Now they don't like it when something that they actually like is having something done to it, do they?
Right. Well, it's like, kind of like when they announced the Charmed reboot, is that... Holly Marie Combs made a snarky twit saying, "Oh, I guess we forgot to do the whole." It's
like Heathers.
Thing. Yeah, I guess they forgot to do the whole feminist thing the first time around, and she was being sarcastic, of course, because it was actually a very feminist show. But yeah, it's like this is a thing that nobody's really asking for.
Well, and I just got to say this because did you notice this though? And I mean, I know there's Buffy has a very vast fan base. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But what I'm getting at here is, do you ever notice that these shows that are geared at the people that are normally telling you that you should just shut up, sit down, and watch your Star Trek or your Ghostbusters or what have you, and just enjoy it and say these women are funny, now they're getting pissed when you start doing shit that they are fans of? like Buffy and Heathers, and
it's like hypocrisy is not a legitimate form of criticism, and it's not a legitimate form of protest. So if you're gonna talk down to people about revamping their favorite property like He-Man or She-Ra,
basically, don't tell me how to eat my Cheerios if you don't like it. If somebody's going to tell you how to eat yours,
and it's like don't tell me to like the new Coke when you were bitching about the new Pepsi.
But let's get back to the idea of subversion. What made Buffy work was it was subversive in the fact that it was the character that normally dies in the horror movie becoming the hero of the horror movie, but horror has changed in so many ways, so that's no longer a thing anymore.
That's a very generalized way of putting it, but yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I mean, I know Whedon wasn't as happy with the movie, and that's why the show was, vastly different in a lot of ways. I never got in the show because I can't stand Sarah Michelle Gellar. But again, I can't say that she wasn't probably perfectly cast either, because that's the character. She's an annoying, bitchy, bubblehead blonde that you're not supposed to like at first, that isn't the typical hero, that becomes the hero, and has a character arc and changes as a person.
Yeah, because she doesn't stay the same over the course of the movie, and then they brought up the TV show some years later because if you remember the 1992 movie with Christy Swanson, I mean, she doesn't stay in Airhead. She actually changes and grows throughout it and undergoes a sort of hero's journey. And it's the same thing with the TV show where she starts off, she's already been the Slayer for some time now, doesn't like it, and then is kind of forced to, adopt these friends who want to get in on it. And she's like, no, we can't put you in danger. Okay, you're staying here. And it really kind of became like a family. So.
Also, for maximum points, Joss said he's going to cast a woman of color as the new Buffy.
Yeah, well, that's... I don't know.
Which is another thing that surprises me, because now can we call them racist?
Yeah, because... Yeah.
Sorry, I'm relishing the fuck out of this. You have no idea.
Then we get to the fact that Joss has a fetish for tough action girls that are short and small and white, but the ones that are of color are big and muscular.
I'm surprised most of them haven't bitched that Whedon's still involved.
Yeah,
they have no choice.
Right, well, to me, it's like, again, why recast her as a black woman when you've already got black Slayers? You can just tell a new story featuring a new character. I mean, seriously. I mean,
in that respect, I totally agree. Because again, you're changing the whole dynamic of the character. Now, I'm not saying that there probably isn't ditzy black girls in the Valley either. There probably is. There's nothing wrong with that, and I've brought that up before too. As long as you don't change who the character is inherently, it doesn't matter. Because I've said it before too about Superman and all these other characters. Like, you can make Superman Asian, you can make him black, you can make him...
Actually, DC Comics has made him Asian. It's pretty amazing.
It doesn't matter because he's an alien, first of all, and second of all, he's adopted. So as long as you don't change the other aspects of the character, it doesn't matter.
Well, no. DC Comics has a whole line where basically China has made a knockoff of all the DC superhero characters. I'm not kidding.
I believe you. I think I seen a picture of it, but no.
The best part
of it I make though is
Batman.
Like, people get pissed off and they're like, "Oh God."
The best part is Batman. He has a school that trains future Batmen and Robins, but if you fail out of the school, you become a Batman villain.
Right, and it's funny you bring up Batman because I've brought up Batman too. You can make him black or Asian or whatever. As long as his parents get killed and he has a cool costume and drives a cool car and he's rich, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter what color his skin is.
Yeah, well, a few years ago, Michelle Rodriguez got in trouble for speaking out on the whole white superhero thing, where she was complaining about how you're taking, traditionally white characters and trying to recast them with minorities, but instead of, creating original characters for minorities to play, you're basically... kind of lending weight to people who say, you're trying to take over our territory here. Well,
and that's part of it too, and that's true. And there is that aspect of it, because there's plenty of characters that either already exist, or like she said, and we've said before, why not just create something new?
Yeah, I mean, you've got, if you're going to have a Black Green Lantern, well, there's already one. He's called John Stewart.
Right.
And now they've got Simon Baz, and they've got female Green Lanterns, because it became about
Wonder Woman taught him nothing.
Right.
Wonder Woman taught them nothing. I thought for sure, I didn't like the movie, but I'm like, well, at least if anything, Hollywood will learn that you could take pre-established characters that are female or of race or whatever, and they can work. Just do them. Don't try to fuck with something else. Just do one that already exists. And Wonder Woman was a hit.
I'm nervous with Captain Marvel because Marvel Comics has butchered her character so badly, and the character has always been butchered by the comics.
I'm not worried. I'm not in a sense that...
Kevin Feige has the golden touch until we know he doesn't. So...
And it's not even it. It's like this. I've been seeing a lot of polls, and they pit Wonder Woman against Captain Marvel, and Captain Marvel wins every poll. So I think that it's not just, it's the Marvel touch, period, because I think people are aware that she's a Marvel character, but they don't know who she is. A lot of people don't know who Captain Marvel is. A lot less people probably know who Captain Marvel is than knew who Doctor Strange or Ant-Man was, for sure. So you're talking about a character that's almost like a completely new character to a lot of these people, like the Guardians of the Galaxy. So you're getting a lot of people excited in that sense, I think. And there's only a small percentage of people who have any, true knowledge of the character in the comics. I mean, you're even talking probably a small division of the comic geeks who actually know who she is and he is, and the whole thing with the Captain Marvel story. I mean, there's very few people that really even get that. So I think that this is going to be kind of one of those things where it's going to be a litmus test in a lot of ways. It's the first female-led Marvel movie. It's a character that people aren't too aware of, so they're going to have a lot of freedom to do a lot of stuff with. And
you're saying that if this works, Marvel Studios may just start making their own characters, not waiting for the comic books to make good characters?
Well, no, not that so much as just Marvel has just so many characters that people don't even know that you can do a lot of with. And I know that these versions of these characters aren't even really, they're true to a point, they're true in the characterizations of the characters, but Feige and company have taken the stories in completely different directions than what they've gone before.
I mean,
and some
Robert
of it's
Downey
been embraced.
Jr.
And
yeah, I mean, Robert Downey Jr. has fundamentally altered Iron Man in the comic books until they cast somebody else to play Tony Stark again whenever they do that.
Yeah. Well, right, but that's just because he's had that much of an impact. It's like, it's not so much that I think they would have changed the character at all fundamentally if Iron Man and the Marvel Universe wasn't as big as it was. It's the same thing with Harley Quinn. She became a character in the comics because she was so popular on the cartoons. And she was a character that was created specifically for the cartoon.
Yeah.
And she was just basically an amalgamation of all these random, girl henchmen she's had over the years. But, or he's had over the years.
Yeah, and Deseret News has an article up explaining why the story for Captain Marvel is set in the 90s. And Feige is saying that it basically has to do with exploring an untapped era of MCU that hasn't really been explored yet. So... But but how are you going to explain Nick Fury looking older?
They're making him.
They're aging him down.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
And
this is going to be the tough one. This is going to be a tough one because they did okay with. I thought they did pretty good with Michael Douglas and stuff in the last Ant-Man. They've come leaps and bounds from young Robert Downey Jr. in Civil War to now. But I don't know if they can hold it for a whole movie. That's what
I'm kind of curious how they're going to slowly start to say, how nobody realized there were superheroes until Tony Stark came out and said, "I'm Iron Man." Well, yeah, there were actually superheroes that whole time, and people just kind of forgot about them, and it wasn't important.
That is going to be a problem. So it's going to have to be a very grounded story, even though it's going to have some cosmic elements to it. But you had the same thing with there's Captain America. He was supposed to be a part of the vernacular too, even though he wasn't brought up until the second Iron Man or whatever.
Yeah.
But it depends on how it's handled. It could be the biggest flop they've had. It could be the worst movie they've ever had. I wasn't too I didn't have much faith in it until I started seeing all these polls, and I'm like, whoa, more people are interested in this character, at least this movie, than I thought they were.
But nobody is buying the comics of the character, which is
that's across the board though anymore, especially with Marvel.
Oh no.
Marvel
Captain
has pretty much lost their.
Captain Marvel has been in the toilet consistently. That's why they keep rebooting her every 18 months, 2 years, and they have a brand new reboot of her.
This will do more for the comic than anything, because like I said, not only the fact that nobody's aware of it. Obviously, whatever fan base she does have has probably come to the point where they just don't care anymore because they've done.
It's kind of like with Ant-Man. It's like nobody really had a demand for an Ant-Man movie, but they made it anyway, and it's at the point where it's like, okay, but this is kind of like a throwaway character. We could have MCU without it, which is probably why Ant-Man declined about 75% at the box office, but.
On the second
recap. You have to always point out though that it did make 35% more on the first weekend. And even Andre said in his recent video that it underperformed. That's not completely true because it's still got a few markets to open up in as well. It's not going to perform at the level of all the other Marvel movies. That's all it is.
But Ant-Man's not that movie.
Exactly. Ant-Man was a character like, okay, let's give this a shot and see what happens. Ant-Man was a surprise. Nobody knew who the fuck Guardians of the Galaxy was either. That was a huge gamble because I'm sure that cost a lot more than Ant-Man did.
Yeah.
And this was kind of like, if this works, this is supposed to set up, the next phase of the Marvel movies, which it happened to work out for him when we see where it went. But if that movie would have flopped, I bet you that would have had to change the whole game plan then.
So here's my question. Once the final ink is final on the Fox deal, do you think Kevin Feige has a Fantastic Four script sitting in a desk?
I don't know if he has a script, but I'm sure he has ideas.
He's got an outline for the Fantastic Four movie I want to make and the X-Men movie I want to make. That every so often when he's got some free time, he sketches a few notes in the sidelines.
I honestly, my opinion or my take on it is what I think is going to happen is we're not going to get an out-and-out X-Men or an out-and-out Fantastic Four movie for a while. He's going to sprinkle the characters in, I bet.
I mean, Galactus is a very nice set piece for the Marvel Universe that you can make be the looming threat over a couple years of movies.
Yeah, and I have a feeling that's kind of what it's going to build up to is, now that he has these characters, you're going to see a major shift in the next phase, probably.
Yeah, because Thanos actually, he's big, and he basically just got finished killing off half the Marvel universe within the movie. But that's part of at least a 2-part story, so it's going to finish. And if you know how the comic book story ends, well, yeah, you can pretty much tell how the movie's going to end. But in terms of Galactus, I mean, he's a planet eater. He's like the Unicron of the Marvel Universe.
Right. And he's a perfect, because he's also, we've already met Ego. So we already got this idea of, it's not a completely outrageous character and where people aren't going to accept him probably.
And when you bring the X-Men in, you can talk about, you can then start to drag the Celestials into the whole property again. There's so many things. Also, Phoenix from the X-Men actually connects with Galactus, so they could actually do that character correctly. Now that they're bringing everything together under the Marvel Universe umbrella.
Well, what this also does, this was just basically a big Christmas gift to Kevin Feige as far as the Marvel Universe goes, because we all know, without really getting into the whole semantics of the story-wise, that they're probably losing a lot of their major players after this next Avengers film. Because contracts are up, people are getting old, they want to start spending their money, etc. So I have a feeling when we come out of this next one, there's not going to have as many of the major players. So it's going to be a savior for Feige to have to fall back on, the X-Men and the Fantastic Four and stuff like that if Captain Marvel doesn't work. If some of these other things they're trying aren't going to work.
Also, if Venom doesn't work, Sony's having enough financial troubles, a couple $1 billion, $5 to $10 billion to sell Spider-Man back. That could do a lot to put Sony back on its feet.
And I think that's even high. I think they'd get them back for less than that. But that's the thing is, Sony was denying that they were for sale for the longest time, and then I read somewhere that they were contemplating selling the entertainment division, which I'm sure nobody would have an issue with. I wouldn't be surprised if that's who Comcast goes after next. And if that's the case, Spider-Man's coming home.
I guarantee you, Hulk alone.
Well, they don't have to really, and that's the beauty of it. They don't have to go spend any money on Hulk, because that was one of the few contracts Marvel was smart enough with to where they still retained rights to the character. But if anybody was going to make a Hulk movie, it had to be Universal, or they had the first rights to it. So they can keep putting Hulk in anywhere they want. And as long as Hulk's not in the title, then they're fine. I think that either they have to pay a small fee or not even a fee to Universal for using the character, as long as Hulk's not in the title. And that's why we won't get a Planet Hulk movie anytime soon. That's why Ragnarok basically, I was going to say, basically was Planet Hulk, because they can't get away with making a singular Hulk movie. But as long as the character sticks around, as long as Mark Ruffalo sticks around, you'll see the Hulk pop up in more places. And I think there's a reason why they've gotten him to this point where he's more of a character, because that's one of the things that's hard to do with the Hulk, is when you have him being this hulking, brainless monster, it's hard to put a character there,
The only thing I think that's in the Hulk package that Marvel/Disney would want access to would be She-Hulk.
Yeah, but even there, you have to keep in mind, anything related to the Hulk and having a standalone Hulk movie, there's only been two made. One was directed by Ang Lee, and that kind of bombed because Ang Lee kind of made it
which
without
sucked, because
really
the first half
understanding
of the movie was good, and then the second half just went to shit.
Yeah, and it was a good idea,
you enjoyed
but
the movie?
it was kind of too hokey, I think, and kind of tried to make the Hulk more too much like putting a literal comic book onto the big screen. And so I thought, the 2008 I think it was 2008
Edward Norton's Hulk movie wasn't bad.
It was more grounded. It was what we needed at that time. Sure, it has its hiccups, it has its moments, it has its history, but I think it's one of the more overlooked films in the Marvel Universe, seriously. I would love to see a standalone Mark Ruffalo Hulk movie, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, just because...
But She-Hulk would have been an interesting piece to add because of some of her dimensions of what she's done in the comics.
Right, because She-Hulk has always been kind of like the Deadpool before Deadpool even existed, because she was another Marvel character who broke the fourth wall pretty frequently, and even going so far as to give her an assistant who had been a previous comic book heroine, and because she hadn't had her own comic book for so many years, she had aged, and so she inserted herself into the She-Hulk comic because she wanted to not die. And right, and that was actually a thing. And there's actually even an issue where
that was Patsy, right?
Yeah, Patsy. So Patsy has to go rescue She-Hulk, and then imagines herself as she is in the current comic, wearing her old costume, and then deciding, no, I'm not going to do that, and then she just goes and runs off, as Patsy. But
so Tom, you may not know this, but the character of Hellcat, Patsy Walker, was originally a romance comic character that Marvel Comics published. That for some reason they just decided, hey, let's make her a superhero.
Right, and that's kind of what I think is going to happen here going forward. If they do dig up any of these weirder characters, you could see new versions of them. But yeah, I don't know if She-Hulk's a little bit more complicated of a character, where I don't know if Marvel even would want to touch that.
Right, and
she'd be a TV character. She-Hulk could be a TV character.
And see, now the TV rights, I think they have 100%.
Yeah.
Because see, last I knew, I think they have every right to produce anything television-wise except for X-Men. I think is what X-Men and Fantastic Four. I think because I think they were in charge of the last few Spider-Man cartoons and stuff like that, and that's how all the characters were able to cross over there. So I'm not 100% on that, but the rights are so fucked up right now. It's not even funny. To where I'd love to get to see these contracts, because that's another thing.
Apparently, the Namor rights are split between 3 or 4 different companies.
Yeah, that's why we haven't heard anything about him at all. Because otherwise, he's another character that has a lot to do with grander things in the Marvel universe that hasn't been able to been utilized.
Something else you guys at Midnight's Edge could probably dive deep into is the whole thing with the Buck Rogers rights. How the character is supposed to be in the public domain, but one of the heirs to the estate is suing so that they can go into bankruptcy, that they can sell the rights to it into bankruptcy to a big studio so the big studio can keep Buck Rogers out of the public domain as a character.
That doesn't surprise me. I'm sure they're probably, I think there's a clause in that 35-year deal or something like that, and I think it extends out to certain family members to a point, and he's probably like the last line of lineage that can do anything. Just a last chance, stitch effort to probably get some money out of the franchise, I bet. Do I agree with it or anything like that? I don't know. I'd have to research it a little bit more. Yeah, but I'm really against this whole. Okay, there was this whole Mickey Mouse case with the whole thing to extend copyrights and shit, and I think that's another part of this probably. I don't agree with that law. I think that the law should have stayed the same to a point, but then again, it's difficult to say because things aren't like they were back when that law was originally made either.
Yeah.
Back then, all you had was books and stuff like that, to where it was like.
Yeah,
you know, the life of a character was a little different.
Yeah, and there was even a lawsuit, actually, and I think it didn't go anywhere, but, you know, an artist who drew a scene from Dr. Seuss in Star Trek mode with Mr. Spock playing three-dimensional chess against a Who, I mean, that, you know, led the estate of Dr. Seuss to sue, and they were able to prove that, you know, okay, this is kind of bullshit, but, you know, getting back to the problems adapting She-Hulk for the big screen, you know, there's some obvious problems because, you know, that they've actually been very consciously doing stories where She-Hulk is, you know, sexualized. There's a panel where she's kind of naked and her boobs are covered up by motion lines or something. And,
well, and then, like, if I remember
you know,
correctly, don't her and Hulk have incestuous
that's some weird 90s comics
that was actually a old man Logan comic where it's set in the far future where Logan is old and Professor X is a ghost inside his head, but you know, there's this thing where She-Hulk is frequently breaking the fourth wall, like I said, and also referring to her sexuality, so she's saying, you know, because I happened to make a joking remark in the letters page, I ended up with all the dignity and respect I've worked so hard to gain wiped away in the name of cheap thrills and maybe higher sales. So, you know, and that's the comic book panel that's up on the screen now. But, you know, this goes, you know, how do you translate this into a TV show or a movie? It's like you're going places where, you know, in the era of Me Too, you really can't and probably shouldn't go. So if they're going to do a She-Hulk movie or a TV show, they're really going to have to tread a fine line here.
Yeah, they'll have to make the character even more tamer than they kind of have Deadpool and really change a lot. I don't see it happening because I'm sure the only way it would happen is if the Marvel Universe wants it to happen, because at this point now that they're so far down the line, if Universal was going to be like, all right, fuck it, we're going to take She-Hulk and we're going to do our own thing, I think it's one of those instances Marvel could probably step in and say, "Wait a minute, you're jeopardizing the character of Hulk, which we've built up now, and all that kind of stuff."
That could be the next phase if Marvel just wants to take Hulk back from Universal. They could sue them and make it impossible for them to use the IP, and then say, "Hey,
because they
buddy.
could probably sue on some type of grounds of that they're going to be defaming or destroying the Hulk's image, basically, yeah."
Right, and now they've got the whole red She-Hulk versus green She-Hulk, and it's really, it's all foobar, because, you know, that's another thing that they might want to consider doing, actually, is doing because they've got the
Red
whole
Hulk
story in the
actually
comics.
An interesting for it. Is actually an interesting character as it's developed over time.
Yeah. Yeah, and that would be an interesting concept to do, because, you know, you've got Red Hulk, you've got Red She-Hulk. One thing I don't understand, though, General Ross has a mustache, and when he turns into Red Hulk, he loses a mustache. What happens
in USA Avengers? In USA Avengers, they fixed that problem.
You're worried about a mustache. I'm more worried about the pants, man. How in all these years has Hulk kept on those pants? I'm sorry, I'm a big guy.
He wears strappy pants.
I know.
Comic books actually cover that. Reed Richards invented a material that most superheroes
after a while,
use in their costumes.
I know. I just having fun with it.
This actually might be a good topic for a future show where we go over here. Let's get crazy. Let's talk about all the things the Marvel Universe could do, but they probably won't. But it would be cool if they did.
Yeah, and at that point, I think we're about out of time. So
yeah.
All right. So this is Michael Wilk, Tom Connors, and Larry Bernard saying, "Take care Good night. We're out.